Welcome everybody to the webinar, How to Leap the Digital Divide. Here at Leep, we're a group dedicated to creating inclusion through our digital inclusion, our online communications, and our volunteering programs. We were formerly known as Tri-Community Exchange. I'm Jordan Vallagiorgio, the Head of Digital Inclusion at Leep, and I'll be presenting this webinar today. You'll find my contact details in front of you, and I invite all webinar participants and people watching the recording later to get in touch for more information or on how to work with us on our digital inclusion initiatives. So what we're going to cover. Today we're going to talk briefly about the digital divide, what it is, how we can define it. Next, we'll work through the 4 key hurdles to get your clients online. We'll follow that with an overview of Leep's digital inclusion initiatives and how your organisation could be involved. Finally, we'll have a period of questions and answers to elaborate on what has been discussed or allow for an opportunity to see how it might apply in your organisation's context. Technology has and will continue to transform and disrupt our lives. But despite its ever-growing presence, 1 in 5 Australians aren't online and don't possess the basic digital skills necessary to take advantage of it. In New South Wales, that means approximately 1.5 million people are not digitally included. This means they're not able to do things like talk to family on Facebook, access information online, or use government services online such as MyGov. So now let's talk about who makes up the 1 in 5 Australians. We know that only 75% of people educated to Year 12 or below are using the internet. We know that only 24% of Australians born in non-English speaking countries have internet access. We know that roughly 30% of people with a disability are using the internet and are online. And we know that only 46% of people aged 65 or more use the internet regularly and feel confident about it. And we also know that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander households are significantly underrepresented in using the internet. So now that we've talked a little bit about the digital divide and who makes it up, let's talk quickly about the costs of digital inclusion. So we're learning now that the digital divide is narrowing. So there are less and less people who are not online, but it's also getting deeper. So as more and more government services are deployed online and more employers expect basic digital skills of their employees, the consequences of not being online are growing and will lead to more exclusion from communities. So what are the costs to the person? Some of the costs are it's harder to find a job if you're not online. You're not able to bank online, you're not able to use government services online, you're not able to find cheaper products or offerings online. And also, it's harder to find information and services, and there's also a greater risk of social isolation from not being online. In terms of some of the other costs, well, there's a whole range of transaction costs. There's underused labour from people who aren't able to find employment. There's a marginalised population who aren't fully included in our society. And there's also the underutilisation of social and support services because people can't find out about them. So a recent Deloitte Access Economics report estimated that just getting more Australians performing government transactions online could lead to productivity and other benefits of roughly $18 billion over the next 10 years. So we've briefly talked about the groups that are most digitally excluded. We've talked about the effects of digital exclusion. So now it's time to turn our attention towards how we can define what makes someone digitally included and how we apply this with our own clients or communities. The 4 key hurdles you see in front of you are based on international evidence and are drawn in part from the UK government's digital inclusion strategy. Skills. Can you use a computing device and browse the internet? Access. Do you have a working internet-ready device and an internet connection? Excuse me. Motivation. Do you know why using the internet could benefit you? And trust. Do you know how to stay safe online or know where to go for help? Talking through the 5 basic digital skills. So this comes from Go On UK, which has created a basic digital skills framework that explains what are the basic skills everyone should have to be digitally literate in easy to understand terms. So it's centered on 5 skill sets and identifies some of the characteristics each individual should be able to accomplish using technology. Why the framework is an excellent starting point is because it supports organizations and funders to use a common understanding of digital literacy to help develop people's digital skills. So at Leap, we've adopted the basic digital skills framework as a starting point for our work. As a service provider, one of the things you might think through is, in terms of showing impact, you need to start at the beginning with a survey to establish people's skills, and then you need to do some kind of evaluation tool afterwards in order to show that difference. Perhaps you might find that the 5 basic digital skills framework is something that works for you. In order to elaborate on a little bit further, I'd like to show you one section from it, which is the problem-solving skill set. So this shows some of the key tasks that an individual who is digitally literate should be able to achieve in terms of digital problem solving. So they should be able to, teach themselves simple tasks using video lessons. They should be able to use information from internet users to solve common problems. They should be able to find accurate sources of support, and also things around avoiding malicious websites, scams, and pop-ups. So now let's talk a little bit about the second hurdle, which is the access to devices and the internet. Obviously, while it's very important that people have basic digital skills, it's also essential that they have access to a device and to the internet. So how can we support access to devices? There's a range of options there, including community recycling schemes, loans to buy devices, providing advice on cheaper devices, so for example, some of the cheaper Android devices. But really important is also community access. So that's things like being able to use computers at libraries and community centres and organisations, etc. As a service provider, I'd like you to think about one key question here in terms of providing access to devices for your clients. Do you have spare computers that you can provide access to for your clients? Do you offer access like that? Or is that something perhaps that you could look at doing in the future? In terms of supporting access to the internet, yes, there's a range of things around providing advice and support on affordable home connections and explaining the differences between, say, phone data, broadband connections, and other forms of internet connections. But it's also really important here to think about Wi-Fi and public Wi-Fi access. So yes, mostly you'll be able to find public Wi-Fi access at libraries, at community centres and shopping centres. But here again, as a service provider or a community organisation, perhaps you could think, do we offer guest Wi-Fi options for our clients or our communities? Or is that something we could consider in the future? It's often a very low-cost way to provide support for digital inclusion as an organisation, so perhaps that's something to think about. Motivation, I think, is the key factor in developing the skills of people who are not digitally included. It's important to explain the benefits of not being online to people clearly, and to demonstrate examples of what they'll actually be able to do online that will make their lives better, easier, or save them money. So often people who aren't online will say something along the lines of, what could the internet possibly ever do for me? Well, what are some of those answers? So perhaps you could say the internet lets you shop or pay bills online, saving time and travel. Particularly for people with mobility challenges or caring responsibilities, that might be something that really appeals to them. Being on the internet allows you to connect with families and friends on Facebook or over Skype, and that includes, relatives overseas or in other states. Or it's as simple as being able to apply for work on websites like Seek, finding events in your local area, finding information from government without having to ring a call centre or wait in line, reporting to Centrelink, or even just being able to watch TV and movies online at your convenience. So it's really important to work through with your clients what their barriers are and clearly demonstrate to them that using the internet will make their lives better, easier, and save them money. In terms of trust, it's very common for people to feel uncomfortable about getting online. They don't know very much about the internet. They don't know necessarily how to know when to trust a website, when it's safe to provide their personal details, or how to use virus protection software and parental control options. I'd like to direct you to a couple of resource depositories firstly. So ScamWatch is a service of the ACCC, and it has a range of excellent resources online and printed materials you can order about staying safe online and avoiding spam, scams, and tricks. ACAN is a consumer body that has easy English information about mobile and internet data plans, how to choose a service, and how to make a complaint if the service isn't working. So there's 2 key resources I'd send you to in terms of dealing with the trust hurdle. So we've talked about digital exclusion and we've defined that. We've looked at the key priority groups that it affects most. Then we talked about what makes someone digitally included and the 4 key hurdles for clients to overcome, with some key tips on how to apply it in your own organisation. Now I'd like to talk about our services at Leep. So at Leep here we run digital literacy programs, we have our new Leep in Lab, and we also have the Western Sydney Online Disability Network. So we've had extensive experience running digital literacy courses for clients, including iPad training for older people and courses for Spanish-speaking groups. Most people coming to us for support are using a smartphone or tablet as a main device, and mostly these devices have been bought or passed down from family members. So that's one of the key learnings we learned, that people are using mobile devices primarily as their main device. We've also found that learners don't necessarily find it very hard to understand technology when it's presented to them in an accessible way. But what we find is that they need a lot of support to have the confidence to try and sort out any issue when something goes wrong. So learning is relatively easy. It's the troubleshooting problems is quite hard, and often people will see that as a key barrier point and they will stop using technology because it's just too hard for them to attempt to figure out what's going wrong. And, some of the key barriers as well, things like passwords and access systems. So those captchas, which are the things often you have to type what's in a blurry photo, or even the concept of passwords and why you need to have multiple caps. You need to have numbers, letters, symbols sometimes. And sometimes it's as simple as just some apps are really badly designed for user interface and we're just all gotten used to it. And that's something that needs to explain to people who are just coming along on the digital journey. So next I'd like to talk about the Leep in Lab. So this Leep in Lab is a drop-in technology help centre. It's volunteer driven and it's our new initiative that builds on what we learned previously from our group training. So it provides one-to-one support. We use volunteer digital mentors in order to support people in a one-to-one context to keep using technology and get through any barriers that they're facing. We are going to be offering mobile clinics and we are looking for referrals from services. So please contact me after this webinar using the contact details included in this presentation. If you'd like to bring the service to your clients and communities, so we're a very affordable and cost-effective way to support your clients. And also please get in touch if you think it's something you might want to offer in the future as well. So I'd also like to talk about the Western Sydney Online Disability Network. So it's an online network of partners with Leep providing advice and learning resources to connect digital inclusion initiatives for disability-friendly organisations across Western Sydney. So what we're looking for here is partner organisations who are able to commit to supporting digital inclusion for their clients. That might be by making computers and Wi-Fi available, or it might be by providing digital mental support or learning programs for their clients and communities. So the network at the moment, which you can go and find at www.leepin.ngo, is supporting people with disability to learn to use technology effectively across Western Sydney in partnership with the UK's Tinder Foundation. So please do be in touch if you think that you want to either be part of the network or perhaps find out more about the network and how it works, particularly if it then later applies to other population groups. I'd like to say thank you to everyone watching the recording at the moment. We have excised the questions and answers in order to make this a more concise presentation for you. So thank you very much for watching this presentation, and if you'd like to be in touch with me, you can find my contact details in front. So it's jordanv@leep.ngo, or you can contact me on my mobile 0410 262 209. Thank you very much.